fictional friends, and welcome to another episode of Fully Booked. I'm Megan.
And I'm Shereen.
And it's the last episode of 2024.
Oh my god!
And Shereen's last episode for the foreseeable future.
Oh my god!
Yeah, I mean, I know I've kind of like mentioned it like several times at this point, but if you are just like randomly hopping onto this episode, you might not know. By the time you are hearing this, Shereen will have her first baby.
My baby.
We will first fully have immersed ourselves in like a little mini Fully Booked contributor as part of the team.
Yep.
She'll be coming on board, but obviously, as I'm sure is very understandable for people, there will be some time off required to adjust to all of this new stuff. So anyway, don't worry about it. I'm still going to be continuing things on my end, and we'll have like a fun guest host for a little while.
I cannot wait to see how this goes. As I've said before, if y'all are listening more with the guest host than with myself, then I will be a little
bit disappointed. She's going out of this being like, gee, I hope people don't hate that, like, love that I'm not there anymore, and decide that
I'm the problem.
It's me. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah. So anyway, so we'll be heading into the new year, and my other half will be like taking over the show in the interim with me because I can't banter with myself. So.
No, I can't wait to see what this is going to look like.
It's going to be, you know what? It actually, I think will be really cool for us because we're really going to have an opportunity to probably explore topics, movies, and books that I just myself wouldn't be exploring as much and wouldn't be as likely to talk about. So I'm always up for like being able to hear certain things like that from a different perspective of someone who's like really into them, because believe me, he's very sci-fi forward, which means that we're definitely going to get into stuff that we've never covered on this podcast.
You're going to have like 3 months of like sci-fi and like science fiction, but more on the science side.
No, we're not doing that the whole time. I'm still running this show, people. I'm still running things.
And
I refuse.
horror.
Yeah, well, yeah, there will probably be some of that. But anyway, listen, it's going to be something that really gives us like a new opportunity to sort of come at things from a different angle, and that's it. Explore some stuff that I probably wouldn't have talked about, I would say, otherwise. So that's cool. That's fine. It's good, and it's great because since he has like a very different sort of like list of books that he's read in the past and like TBR and even things that he focuses on that he reads regularly that I wouldn't really think to pick up most of the time because it's just not my jam. This gives us like a much wider range of topics, which I can appreciate.
It's like my husband, he read Three-Bodied Problem this year, and my husband has a PhD in physics.
Yeah.
And he was like, you have, like, it was so good.
Yeah.
Like, you have to, like, read it or listen to the audiobook. So, you know, being a good wife, I did try. I got through the first chapter. I'm like,
what?
This is all about physics.
Yes.
Like, it's all, like, in-depth physics concepts. And I'm like, I will never be able to get through these books. And he's like, but they explain it. I'm like, no, they don't. Like, not in the way that it needs to be. I'm like, oh, my God.
Yeah, no, I think... I believe that that's at the Three-Body Problem. Like, that series is classified as hard science fiction, which I think means that it's based very, very heavily in actual scientific exploration and fact, as opposed to, like, the type of science fiction that's, like, there are aliens or, I mean, like, this, okay, fine, Three-Body Problem has aliens, but whatever, you know what I mean? Like, in the sense of, like, it's not based in that as much as it's, like, what am I thinking of? Like, the Alien franchise, for instance, where we go into space and there's a big xenomorph there and we have to fight it. Like, Three-Body Problem, that's not the type of alien exploration that we're talking about.
I'm telling you, the entire whole first chapter was all about physics concepts, and I'm like, what am I reading?
Yeah, you're like, I feel like I'm reading a textbook.
Yeah.
Like, I'm supposed to,
I was like, I'm so bored.
Understand what this is. That's it. Anyway. But it's really, but a lot of people really love it. It's like very well regarded.
And I
mean, now with the show as well, it's like blown up to another level. Because I know they did a show in China a couple of years ago.
Oh, right, okay.
But now that especially it's come over to like the Western side of the world with things, it's just like exploded everywhere. And it was like a very well-received show also that first season. I know they're making a second one.
Yeah,
so.
Probably another adaptation for 2025 that we didn't mention.
Entirely possible, but it's probably because neither of us are like, I'm so excited.
Darren was like, guys, this one's coming. We're like, oh yeah.
Cool. Listen, I didn't hate the first season. It was well done. The characters were really good, but yeah, there were like a lot of principles that I was like, I'm never going to fully connect with this series because there's so much of it that I'm not quite grasping myself. That's it. And I'm not ashamed to admit that. That's just what it is. So, okay. So today we're finishing out things up for the year the way that we have done the last couple of years, basically, which is by talking about our top 10 books of the year of 2024. And no, this is not just books that were published in 2024. It's just our top reads. So we each have our 5 picks and probably a couple of honorable mentions.
Totes.
Yeah. Okay, we're kicking it off. Shereen, what's your first pick?
My first pick. As you probably all know by now if you've listened to us a few times, my absolute favorite genre is fantasy. And I love a good fantasy series that just goes on. And I, of course, love our girl Sarah Maas. So this year I read Crescent City. All 3 of them.
You read all 3 of them this year, right?
I did,
okay,
yeah. Like one after the other because that's what I do.
Yes.
I have to consume all of it all at once. It was funny because, so I've read Throne of Glass and I've read all of ACOTAR as well. And I was holding off on reading Crescent City because almost like letting it like a fine wine mature on my shelf because I had all of the books. But I had been sent into such a book hangover after ACOTAR, and I was doing really well with reading this year that I just didn't want to like ruin my like my groove, you know. And I had made 2 attempts to read Crescent City previously, and from what I can understand, it's one of these where either you love it or you hate it.
Yeah, it seems to be.
And it's one, and like every time, by the 3rd time that I did actually like read it and get through it, I realized why I struggled so much to get like the momentum going on it previously is because in this series, it's about, a lot of it is about a friendship. So like best friends, and you're kind of like, oh, this is so lovely. Like, it's not like a love story, like kind of like ACOTAR and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's about, you know, Bryce is the main character.
Sorry to interrupt you. Should we have prefaced this with a spoiler alert of some kind?
Yeah, well, not really. I mean, this happens in the first chapter, but yeah, kind of mini spoiler alert.
Spoiler, maybe just across the board, whatever we're talking about, just spoilers.
Spoiler
blah,
alert.
blah, 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 spoilers.
You know, and so you've got like Bryce, who's the main character, and she has her best friend in the entire world, Danica, and they love each other, and like they are just the best friends, and like their lives are like set up in a way around each other. Basically, they live together. Danica is a werewolf, cool. And Bryce is like half fae, and they just have this great life together. And within the first chapter, Danica gets murdered.
Oh my gosh.
And you're like, holy shit, like I was so happy for like these 2 best friends that I assumed were going to like take over some epic like thing together.
Like, do something cool.
Anyway, so Crescent City, the first one, is basically a murder mystery about like who killed Danica, kind of.
Okay. You know what? I have a recollection of this because when you had started reading it and we spoke about it, you were like, I thought it was going to be like a thing, and I was going to be like, it's like me and Megan.
Yeah.
We're like best friends.
We're like best friends. Yay, best friends. And then it's like one of them gets murdered.
And like we're roommates, and we're like we're all like having fun together and living our lives and everything. And then like the other one dies, and she's like,
I was like the first chapter. I'm like, what the hell? Like, yeah. So, but I powered through, and I'm glad I did because after I read the first Crescent City book, I was like, you know what? Like, I think this actually is a strong contender for being my favorite Sarah Maas book. But yeah, so I read all 3 of them. They were very good. Definitely recommend. The second one's a bit of a slog, but it's a setup for the next
some
one.
of them, that's the problem, right? Is that when you get into like some of the middle books, depending on what they are, they can be like a setup for a later, very maybe like intricate plot line that comes to fruition. And I get it, but it's true that during that time you're like, oh god.
Well, and that's why ACOTAR was so good because they were all so good all the way through.
Kind of, yeah. There's like a bit of a difference. Yeah.
Anywho, what about you, Megan? What's the first one on your list?
Okay, yeah. So ironically, in that similar vein, my also these are in no particular order because we never put them in order because we're bad at ordering things. Every time you ask us for our favorite anything, we're like, well, I like these 7.
I can give you 7. I can give you 1.
You like 10, but I can't give you 1. It's like when people are like, what's your favorite horror movie? I'm like, I'm not going to answer that question.
Oh, I can't tell you how many times I've been asked in my life, what's your favorite book?
Oh, well,
I'm like, genre, subgenre, like, length,
do you want
author,
like my favorite fantasy books,
decade.
My favorite mystery books, my favorite horror books, plural on each of those.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no. So yeah, funny enough, in that similar vein, the only I've been making my way through ACOTAR very slowly, much to Shereen's chagrin. It drives her fucking bonkers, which might be half the reason I do it. But
I think you do it on purpose because you really take longer and longer between books.
I really don't. It's also just because like I've said, that's it. Every time I read like a longer fantasy, particularly like more epic fantasy in that vein, I have a tendency where after I'm like, I need to decompress from this. So like I start reading shorter books and then sometimes I just get distracted by other stuff, honestly. So it takes me a while. So, but yeah, I think like maybe like early spring this year, I read A Court of Wings and Ruin and it was great.
Yes.
So I really, really liked it. That's the third one. Yeah. Because I'd read the first two last year.
That's
I
right.
think.
Yeah.
And then that's it. This was one that I've read so far this year, and it was great. I loved it. I really liked, I think what I really liked in this one was that while I've liked the character of Farah throughout the first two novels, in this one, she wholly turns into a badass, and I was like, yes. And then, like, the battle at the end is incredible. It's so fucking good. Elaine does something in this book. Love that for her. Nesta explains herself a little bit in this book, which I appreciate. You know, she's not perfect, but I appreciate that a little bit, and you're getting, like, you know, some development slowly but surely with some of the other characters, which is cool. And stuff. So those are all aspects of it that I really appreciate.
The bitch Tamlin makes a reappearance.
And he sucks him the whole time, but also like he gets his ass handed to him multiple,
which is also very satisfying.
Yeah, that's it. Multiple times in multiple ways. Fucking God, what's her name? Who dies in this one? Cherry on top of everything.
Oh, Amarantha.
No, not Amarantha. I've forgotten her name. The priestess.
Starts with a Y, doesn't it?
I don't remember.
Yeah, but I know who you're talking about, and yes, so glad
after,
about that.
You know, she, like, fucking sexually harasses Lucian and then tries to kill Feyre, get her killed on multiple occasions.
Oh, I know, she's such a bitch.
And she dies in a brutal way, and it was really satisfying, so I appreciate that shit. So, yeah, it was great. It was a really cool one. It was like a really cool, I think, kind of point to get to where now that we've spent more time with some of the other characters, now I can see how we're starting to deviate to certain other storylines, which I appreciate.
Yeah. Agree.
Yeah.
Next one on my list is The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix.
This is my favorite Grady Hendrix book.
This was the first Grady Hendrix book I've ever read. First, I think, probably one of the first horror books I've read.
Yeah, like proper horror books. Yeah.
And it was funny because I was like, I wasn't very far in the first, you know, when she gets attacked by the vampire the first time.
Yeah.
And, like, I think the way that it's described is, like, it bites her ear off.
It bites a piece of it,
a piece of her ear off. And, like, and they're, like, explaining, like, the squelching noise and all this. And I'm like, I'm, like, holding the book away from my face. And I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, it's not. But what I really liked about it was so funny in the way that you've got these
women, the female characters in this book and like their interactions, the way they talk to each other and everything, and like especially in like the setting that they're in, the time period that they're in, because it's set in the 90s. They're so fucking funny. They're so funny with each other.
They really are, and they're these like, you know, prim and proper, like, Southern ladies.
Like, Southern housewifey type moms who have this, like, little, like skeezy little book club where they read these, like, salacious true crime novels the whole way through. It's so funny.
It's too funny. And then, like, you know, just the whole thing. It was a great story. It was really good. Yeah. Like, I really enjoyed it, and I read it in the summer as well. So it was like, just,
it's hot.
It was hot, you know.
It's set in the South, and it's, like, hot. Everybody's sweating all the time.
Because they keep talking about that. But no, I really liked it, and it wasn't like your typical type of vampire novel. He was more of a monster, I felt, than a vampire. Or like, okay, a vampire is a monster, but a lot of the time they're portrayed as like very human adjacent, very charming. But yeah, this guy was like clearly a monster. So really, really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, it's such a fun one. I think
we'll be reading more Grady Hendrix.
Yeah, of all the ones that I've read, I think it's my favorite. Like, I mean, I shouldn't say that preemptively because he literally has a new book coming out in January, which I'm so fucking pumped for. It's called Witchcraft for Wayward Girls, and it's set like a boarding school. It sounds great.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I'm so excited that he's gone into like the witch stuff, because I was like, yes. And I'm telling you, that's it. I don't know. I've never been disappointed by how Grady Hendrix writes female characters in his novels.
No, it was great.
They're very good.
It was really great.
Yeah, because so often women written by men can be very touchy, but like it's such a fun book, and it's so like it's so like kind of cheeky. Like the book itself is almost winking at you with some of the stuff that it does.
Yeah, it's true.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Also, it's getting an adaptation from HBO, which I'm super excited about.
Which one?
Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying
that'll
Vampires.
be great.
Yeah, so good.
Way to go, HBO.
Yeah, well done. Right, okay, yes. The next one on my list is None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell.
Okay.
Which I read in... I brought it on vacation. I was in Jamaica in February, and I brought it with me. I usually bring like a couple of books with me, and then if I get through everything, I'm like, well, I have an e-reader, whatever, it's fine. But anyway, so I brought it with me, and it was one of those that, so unfortunately, I went to Jamaica in February and definitely caught a horrible flu or COVID, possibly, from someone on the plane on the way there, because within 48 hours of arriving, I felt like horrible.
Garbage.
Oh God, awful. There was like one entire day that we were there where I just couldn't get out of bed, didn't go anywhere,
sucks.
and then was kind of like spent the rest of my time like, you know, we couldn't go on any excursions, we couldn't do anything. I was just kind of like, okay, I'm gonna power through some of this and like, you know, sit far away from people in different areas by like pools and on like the beach side of things and stuff, and just hide and read and drink a lot of water. And what else can I really do while I'm here? So I was kind of just doing that for most of it, and you know, keeping masks on and try to stay away from people. There's only so much you can do.
At least you were courteous enough to wear a mask.
I was trying to. Anyway, so while I was really glad I had like a couple of books with me, and this was one that I think that's the one of the days after where I was actually feeling like a little bit more energetic and could at least go out by the pool. You know, my fiance went to the gym. He was like, "Hey, I'm gonna go do this. I'll go get some food, and then I'll come meet you or whatever, and you'll see if you want to like get in the pool, if you want to do something, like go like, you know, go in the pool for a bit if you want to, or do this or do that kind of thing." And I was like, yep, okay. And I sat down with this book, and it's very much like a beach read style of thriller, basically.
Oh, yeah.
And I sat down with it, and he showed up a while later, and I think I was like over 200 pages in.
Wow.
And I was just like, and he was like, have you just been sitting here the entire time? And I was like, yep, this is keeping me from distracted from the sore throat and stuff nose that I have right now. So great.
Love a good book that'll do that.
That's it. Yeah, no, it's a thriller that follows two women who are at the same like pub, basically, like a nicer restaurant, I forget what it is anyway, and realize that they have the same birth date.
Okay.
And they're both there celebrating their birthdays, and they kind of bump into each other, exchange this information. One of them is like a podcast host, and they contact each other because the podcast host wants to maybe start like a series or something, like, you know, on just talking to people about their experiences. And so they meet to start learning about each other, and the other one becomes kind of obsessed with her, but she also seems to have a really bizarre backstory. So the podcast host starts to get a little sus of the whole thing. And so there's like a lot of like development that happens with that, but it kind of gets right into it.
Interesting.
Which I appreciate, where like they're not giving everything away right off the cuff. But, you know, but it was like one of Lisa Jewell's latest. She's, you know, very much in that beach read thrillers with a lot of twists kind of vein. And it was like the perfect kind of book to have on vacation. Yeah. So I'm grateful that I felt like hot garbage, I at least had something good to read.
I love a beach read like that. Like, I love bringing things that are, like, actual beach reads.
Yes.
But then I also love bringing, like, a Harlan Coben book with me or something. Like, those are pretty good.
Those are, like, my types of beach reads, I find. Like, a thriller type of thing with, like, a lot of, like, little twists and turns.
Yeah, because they're fun,
Exactly.
you know? Side tangent, Megan and I always go on vacation together. Like,
very frequently.
Last year we went on like 4 vacations together. Like, normally we do all of our trips together.
Yeah, well, because we do sometimes, if we do road trips, we'll do stuff in the area together, and then we've obviously had times where we've gone like to Florida, or we've gone
resorts
to
or
resorts
whatever.
or things. Yeah,
but this year it just so happened that we actually did all of our trips apart.
Yeah.
Which A, is no fun because then you got nobody to like plan it with.
I mean, kind of, yeah.
And B, what's hilarious is that Megan got sick when she was on vacation in Jamaica, and normally yours truly is the one who absorbs all the sickness around and ends up either in the ER or sick or like something when we go on a vacation.
Happens. Although granted, like, to be fair, like, you know, we say that, but it's not like it's happened every single time we've done anything. Like, we all survived an entire week trip to Universal Studios.
That was lucky.
Yeah.
Luckily, knock on wood, I haven't gotten too sick in the U.S.
That's it.
Which would be very expensive. Yeah. My next one is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson.
Cool.
So I actually read this on my way to San Francisco when we went. That was our baby moon, my husband and I. And I just sat there, like, just reading the whole time. Like, you know, just could not stop, like, getting through it. It's because the TV show was coming out that week that I was like, oh, I'm going to read it.
Yeah.
Really thoroughly enjoyed that one. Easy read. I'm going to probably get the second one so that I can breeze through that this year.
I think you have it.
Do I?
I can't tell from here.
See, it's my bookshelf.
Yeah. It's lost somewhere.
Sometimes it provides, sometimes... No, I have all of the One of Us is Lying ones.
Oh, okay. Yes, that's what it is. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I need the next one for Good Girl's Guide to Murder. But thoroughly enjoyed that one. Easy
we did
read.
a whole episode about it. Murder mystery in a small town.
The characters.
Yeah, that's it. Like young girls hosting a like doing like a podcast thing.
No,
it's or is it a final project for school?
Final project for school.
And she decides to try to solve what she believes is like an unjust accusation of a murder against this kid from like 5 years ago who people say killed his girlfriend.
And
then killed himself.
It's pretty good. There's a lot of twists and turns, and obviously she debunks it, and she does it in partnership with the accused's brother.
Younger brother, yes, yeah.
And of course, like, there's a little love story going on there, but it doesn't take over the plot, which I really appreciate.
It's just like a cute addition to it.
Yeah, it's like just a little thing at the end there. Yeah, so good one there.
Good stuff. Okay, my next one is a little bit more of an indie novel called Between. It's by an author named L.L. Starling. It is very, very cozy fantasy. It's very long. It's a very long book. I read it on and off for a while to get through it.
Yeah, you told me about this one.
Yeah, about a woman who goes to a small town to work as a substitute teacher, and she basically finds like a contingent of like a coven of witches essentially who live there, but in like the very like sort of fantasy-esque like witches and wizards kind of way, and accidentally realizes that there's like almost a portal there basically where you can access like this other world called the Between, which is currently in like sort of like a turf war situation, and she winds up working in tandem with the man who's supposed to be like the actual king of Between basically, and they wind up like working together and stuff and forming like a relationship. But yeah, it was cool because it was just like I had read that it was like similar to something else in a way, and I was like, oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
And I started it, and I was like, oh, I actually quite liked it.
Yeah.
So no,
I remember you saying you enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, I really liked it. It was a really cool one to get through. I really appreciated that. Plus, like, that's it. Like, I like a cozy fantasy, like something that you're reading where you're just like, I just feel nice reading this, you know?
I do like a good cozy fantasy.
Yeah.
Next one on my list is Iron Flame. So the second one
Fourth Wing.
Thank you. All I could think was Iron Fist for a second there. I'm like, that is not what the first one's called.
You're like the Marvel show? So bad.
That was not what the first one was called. Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. I will obviously be reading the new one coming out in January.
Very soon when you guys are hearing this episode.
Can't wait.
What is it? Onyx Storm?
Onyx Storm. Yeah, so I'll be reading that one. I've already pre-ordered it.
Of course.
But yeah, really enjoy the Fourth Wing series. When I first started reading it, I was a little bit like, ugh, is this just like a ripoff of like Sarah
rehash
Maas?
Of a lot of the other very similar ones.
Yeah, but there are dragons in this one.
And the dragons are sassy as fook, apparently.
Oh, they are so good. Yeah. And I love them so much. And they're just like the best. And so I will read every book in this series because of the dragons.
That's fair.
Very excited for the next one.
We do like a talking dragon. It does make things more fun, honestly.
Oh, I've always loved a talking dragon. Yeah. Like, when I was in university, I took a course about how Tolkien uses Old English.
Yes.
Or used Old English to tell a lot of his stories and like a lot of lore from it. And so I got to write a paper about how Smaug the dragon in The Hobbit is the same as the Draka from Beowulf.
Oh, right.
I think it was my most favorite essay I ever wrote because we love a talking dragon.
It's just cool. It's a very cool, very niche kind of exploration to do. Yeah. Honestly, there should be more of that in fantasy. More talking dragons, please.
More.
Make that a thing.
Why don't we do it more?
Why don't we have more of them?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anywho.
Okay, my next choice, or my fourth choice, is Cackle by Rachel Harrison. I think Such Sharp Teeth from Rachel Harrison was on my list last year. I really like her style of writing. I do.
Yeah, I remember you talking about this.
She's a, like, mostly that's it, like, horror, supernatural author, and her stuff skews very much into, like, female relationships. And partnerships, friendships, like, all those kinds of things. And she just has, like, a very cool sort of attitude towards a lot of it, and a kind of a very realistic portrayal of, like, certain, like, insecurities that women can have, and certain, like, issues that may come up for us on a regular basis, which, like, makes sense. Obviously, it's a woman writing about women, so that does kind of track. But no, I really appreciate it, and it's cool because she has several books, and she's got several that kind of focus on one different kind of supernatural being of some sort. So Such Sharp Teeth was a werewolf novel. Cackle is a witch focused story. I know that her latest that came out this year, called So Thirsty, is a vampire novel, which is cool. I really want to read that one. There's Black Sheep as well, which I know less about, but I picked it up not long ago, and I've seen a lot of people online liken it to, like, if you like Rosemary's Baby.
Oh,
so, like, demonic, maybe something or other kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to those as well. I'm going to get through probably all of those in the next, like, year or so, I would assume. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. But it's the story is basically of a woman who has recently just gone through a breakup that's left her very brokenhearted, and she moves out of the city into a much smaller town to work as a teacher there. And while she's there, she meets this woman who is, like, ethereally, like, stunning, seems to have all her shit together, and is someone who kind of starts, like, taking her around town and showing her these things that she can have access to that, like, don't really make any sense. So she kind of starts to be like, is this woman a witch? But she's, like, also in the midst of kind of, like, rolling with it and still dealing with her own heartbreak. And so it has a lot to do with like, coming to terms with certain aspects, and, like, maybe, you know, your relationship not have like, maybe seeing your relationship through rose-colored glasses, and maybe it wasn't as great as you thought it was. And a lot to do with, like, female empowerment and taking, like, you know, taking your own kind of life back, your likes and dislikes and all those sorts of things, and finding that with, like, companionship and being happy on your own. There's a lot of sort of talk about that, because the character, who's more of, like, a witch, basically talks about, like, a lot of, like, not feeling the need to have like a partner or function, and, like, that kind of relationship where it's sort of like, well, I've had them before, but I'm, like, I'm happy by myself, I'm happy with myself, kind of thing. So there's a lot of that, but it's always got like a very sort of black humor kind of through line to it, in a lot of, like, the dialogue and the little things that happen. There's literally, like, there's a thing with a spider. There's a thing with a spider where the spider is like you're familiar, your companion, and the spider is, like, it's almost like it's its own person, where it has reactions to things, and it understands when you talk to it, and it, like, it's just funny. I can just picture it. It looks like a cartoon in my head, but I can just picture, like, this, like, spider being excited when she's, like, you know, picked a dress, and she's like, what do you think? And he, like, bounces up and down because he's excited. It's just funny. Cute. And she says he, like, smiles at her, and I'm like, what? Aww, how is this possible?
So cute.
It sounds adorable, and I hate spiders, so...
Spider bros, Megan.
Too many legs.
They take out all the other shit,
unnatural. They can take it out outside. I don't want them in my fucking house. That's it.
I leave the spider bros alone because I'd rather have them than fucking mosquitoes or whatever.
No, I don't want anything in my house. Get out. I let the cats eat all of them. It's fine.
Yeah, well, my dog doesn't. He, like, looks at it and he's like, that is beneath me to eat that.
I'm not doing that. Yeah.
He's like, give me a steak.
Yeah.
My last one on my list is The Only One Left by Riley Sager. Again, first Riley Sager I've read.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. It was really good. This was the Lizzie Borden type
that's the only
story.
Thing I can like in it,
too. Basically, it's the story of the main character is she's like a carer for, like, older people, whatnot. And she gets sent on a new assignment to this mansion or manor to take care of this woman. I can't remember her name, Virginia.
Oh, I believe so, yeah. I also don't remember. I read it a couple years ago.
Yeah, to take care of this woman who notoriously is known to have murdered her parents and her sister, but
allegedly,
was never convicted for it. But the town has basically convicted her for it. Yeah. And so, so there's this whole story that ensues where this woman is no longer able to speak. She can't do anything for herself. She is all there mentally, but she needs like round the clock care. And so the main character is there to care for her. And it's just a really interesting chain of events that ensues. And like, it was just such a page turner where there's like little clues dotted here and there of what's going on. And like, you kind of get like a theory, probably like 2/3 of the way through, and you're like, ooh,
is this what's going
on? So no spoilers, but definitely recommend this one.
Yeah, it's definitely like a fun, it's like again, like Riley Sager is a really easy author to pick up when you want like just like a really interesting thriller. And I will say like all of his stories are vastly different from one another. Like they're very different in terms of the characters, the circumstances and stuff. I never really feel when I'm reading them like anything's repeated, because at this point I've probably read like 6 of his books by now. Because he's normally a one a year kind of person, so I regularly see new ones show up. Like I just read like his latest from this past summer, Middle of the Night. I read, I think I want to say like in the early fall or something. So they're just like easy ones to pick up, and they're kind of always fun, even if you don't love it the whole way through, and if you maybe don't love like what the actual like sort of twist turns out to be, they're still interesting to see for sure. You've read a lot of books this year that are very like varied for you, outside of your usual.
Yeah, and I think it's because I had such a bad reading year last year that like I was like, it's time to try something new. And like, I'm glad that I've been reading outside of my usual, because like the ones that I did read this year that were like think about like the Wren and the Holly Library, that would have been right up my street normally. I didn't enjoy it as much. And so I was like, you know what? It's time to like kind of shake things up a little bit. And I'm really glad that I did, because I genuinely
because like look at these ones on your list, like Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires.
I swear to God, like, I was reading it like this, and I was like, oh God, like it was so far from my face when that scene was happening. But I'm like, I'm going to power through. And I'm glad.
Yeah, because it's just, when you get through, like, maybe that's it, like, some aspects of things that you're not as comfortable with or as used to reading. Sometimes you find, not with every book, but sometimes you find a story or a book that you're like, holy shit, this was great. I loved this.
And, like, I think, like, reading that Riley Sager one was the one that like triggered me to be like, okay, like let's go further now.
You to do something else. Well, actually, the one that I mentioned before, None of This Is True, that would probably be very much something you would enjoy now as well if you wanted to like do something like that very fast.
Yeah, definitely.
To get through. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So my last one is actually one of the last 2 books that I read. I love it when things like that, like last minute make it onto your list. That it just happens to be like some of the last ones that you've read. So my last one is Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman. So Josh Malerman, I guess most famously because of the movie, he wrote Bird Box. Okay. Which is like probably well known now because of the Netflix film they made there.
Sandra Bullock is in that one?
Yeah, that's it. So Incidents Around the House is his latest. That was published not too long ago. I think within the past few months or so. It's not going to be for everybody because it has a very particular narrative structure to it. The entire thing's told from the perspective of basically like a 5 or 6 year old girl named Bella. Who lives and it's just if you look at like the style of it, like on the page, there's no like proper narrative structure breakdown. It's just like you can like there's indents where like the speaking portion, like the dialogue's happening, and then it just goes back to regular stuff for like her thoughts about things as the novel goes, because it's supposed to sort of disorient you essentially, where you can't quite tell what's going on in some of the things because Bella can't follow everything that's happening because she's so young. Yeah. Right. So she lives, so basically not to give too much stuff away there because it's also like a newer book, but Bella lives with her parents, and there's been over the past little while, we kind of kick off in the middle of things to a degree. There's been some sort of entity that seems to have made its way into their house who talks to her. Basically, at first it was in her closet. And then it started coming out of the closet to talk to her and kind of becoming her friend and stuff.
Ooh, that's creepy.
Yeah, and it's the way that it's written, again, I find weirdly, like, the narrative structure actually lends itself well to making it scarier, because it's like, it's a little girl doing this, so she's describing it as a kid would describe it, so in a very frank kind of manner that you're like, oh, okay. Anyway, it's this entity that she calls Other Mommy, because that's what it wants her
It kind of sounds like Coraline.
Sort of.
Yeah.
That's what it wants her to call it, and it's trying to get something out of her, and she doesn't quite understand it, but she's still cognizant enough, even as a child, children are perceptive, and she's cognizant enough to understand that she can only do so much with Other Mommy, because Other Mommy keeps asking her to let her into her heart to see if she'll give her permission for it. And it's like, genuinely, like, there were a few scenes where I was like, oh God, this is terrifying, where it was like very, very creepy, but it had like a really interesting atmosphere to it. And it's hard to write something like that from the perspective of a child as a grown-ass person.
Yeah.
So like, hey, like, you know, kudos to Josh Mallerman for that. I feel like this, if it were well made and had a really good kid actor, would make a fucking good movie.
I bet it would, but you'd have to get a really good kid actor by the sounds of it.
Yeah, you'd have to get like a very strong lead in the first place, and yes, you probably have to like get a slightly older one and age them down a bit, but I mean, whatever, that happens in most movies at this point, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, honorable mentions, if we have a few honorable mentions.
So honorable mentions, I've got the Atlas 6.
Yeah.
Haven't finished reading this one yet because it disappeared through the renovations, but about halfway through, I love a good, like, dark academia kind of, you know, and the characters are compelling. I like the writing style. I like that so all the characters are from, like, different parts of the world.
Yeah.
And I want to see where this is going with this whole Library of Alexandria. And I think there's like 3 in the series here. So, like, I would really like to get through it so that I can, like, devour the rest of them.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And, you go ahead, and I've got another one after.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think I mentioned it in a previous episode as having read it, that said I had gotten an ARC of a book called A Glimmer in the Hollows by Lorna Selly, which, like I said, it was just like a book that surprised me in the turn that it took part of the way through the story, and it kind of went somewhere that I wasn't expecting it to. It's like what you think is going to be like a straight mystery into like missing children and stuff becomes something like very, very different. So I mean, like, I really appreciated that about it, that it took such a turn from what I thought it was going to. So I really wouldn't have assumed that the end was coming before they kind of like painted the picture. And then I was like, oh God, okay, right. We're in a different book now. Okay.
Yeah.
A different kind of story. So that's good, at least.
Sorry, this one looks like Luna could climb up it, like rock climbing style. My other honorable mention, I hated this book, but
why is it on your list?
Because it was so funny.
Okay, fine.
Twisted Love.
Oh God.
Because it was the first spicy audiobook that I listened to, and like the voices that were being done and the nicknames and the whole thing was fucking wild that I could not stop talking about it. And I even made Megan listen to it, and she was like, this is just garbage. And I'm like, it's horrible.
I stopped, and then I read them instead. I'm telling you, I can read it. I can read the bullshit and I'm fine. But if I start listening to it, I can't, because it's also so long to get through when you're listening to it that I just don't have the bandwidth for it after a while. I'm like, oh God, I don't want to do this right now. Anyway, I think my only other, so I think my only other real, like, honorable mention is The Resort by Sarah Ox, which I'd read, I don't know, earlier in the year at some point anyway, which, again, like another, like, kind of like thriller, like murder mystery thriller type thing, takes place on a resort in Thailand, where there are a bunch of like expats basically who live there, some Brits and like a couple of like Americans and different characters and stuff who are, you know, people who have moved there over time and are working at one of like the resorts on the islands where, like, you know, they do like scuba tours and different stuff like that, whatever, like things along those lines. And there's a girl, you know, people seem to have secrets in certain cases. And there's at one point there's a party one evening, and then the next day a dead body is found of one of the people who's supposed to go on one of the dives or the expeditions. And so it becomes like a bit of like finger pointing of like who could have had something to do with this. But it had like overall like a pretty quick through line, which is cool. And it also it ended with like an extra twist at the end, is all I will say, that I was like, oh, didn't see that one coming. So again, I always appreciate that. I like it. It's just good. It's just good when it happens.
It's just good.
But anyway, God, so that was 2024. I think was a pretty good reading year for both of us.
It
overall.
was, actually.
Felt like a pretty solid, like, steady one the whole time.
I'm interested to see how my reading year goes this year. It's either going to be, like, so good, or I'm going to, like, get nothing done.
I mean, listen, I think that I'm pretty sure that you'll have to cut yourself some slack in terms of certain things, because, like, what are you going to do with an infant?
What am I going to do? I've got an infant, an Onyx Storm, and I'm going to be like, shh.
Yeah, you'll just have her strapped to you and then just read the book, and that'll be totally
I do have
fine.
a baby carrier. So.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you again for joining us for like another year of this. It's just been fun to like slowly see some growth happening and see people kind of like, you know, hopefully wanting to come along for the ride with us, which I really appreciate, which is great. And I'm just looking forward to continuing things next year, maybe trying out some new stuff. I mean, we're going to have a whole new host with us for a bit there at the beginning of the year, so that's going to change things up for sure.
I'm going to be listening to the podcast episode. It's going to be great.
Yeah. And just kind of seeing like that's it where certain things take us. Thank you so much for like all of the sort of support from anybody on the website and everything too. Thank you again to our team of contributors. You guys are always coming through for us.
The backbone of this team.
For real, and really just like making things better and better as time goes on, and I really appreciate it. And I'd love to see like the growth on the site and kind of where we're at with stuff, as we're slowly as like a kind of a mom and pop organization to a degree, trying to like organize stuff and fix things slowly but surely. It's been really hard to do, so I appreciate anybody who's actually like kind of sticking around with us for any of that. And I hope you guys are having a good holiday season, whether you celebrate or not. I hope that you're safe. I hope that people are healthy and happy as they can be, and that hopefully you're doing something for yourself to just help wind down, because I think we all know it's not been the best year across the globe as a rule, unfortunately.
Get ready for 2025.
Yeah. So, you know, hopefully we can kind of keep some positivity going, or at least distract people from some stuff from time to time is kind of nice, if nothing else.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. But anyway, until next episode, guys, I don't know if we're going to take an extra week or if we're going to have something in between this there. I'm not sure. I don't think so. But anyway, God, we're heading into next year. So obviously, as always, you can feel free to follow us over on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at FullyBookedCA, and also check out the website, fullybooked.ca. Sign up for our newsletter and check out all of the contributions that we have over on that side of things, recommendations, reviews, all that stuff. But until next year, everyone, keep on reading.
Thanks, everyone.